Hello everyone, welcome back to the... This is going to be the Beginner's Guide to Jungle, but for this particular match, I'm going to split this match into two separate videos. The reason why is twofold. The first is that I want to break down my pathing and my decisions in the first half of the game, so I will be covering the first half of this hour-long match. The second reason why is because in the back half of the match, my decision-making gets considerably less consistent. Some of the decisions I make in the second half of the game are great. Some of them are glaringly bad. The reason for this is because I was recording this during a session of Saturday Night Smiting. Now, anybody who smites on the weekend and is of legal drinking age probably can guess where that goes. I had cracked, because of how long this match is, this is an hour-long match, I got to the point where I cracked open a second cold one during this. Okay? So... you can see the point where my decision-making becomes substantially less consistent. However, it is a great example of good and bad decision-making for jungling in the late game. So for this particular episode, I am going to be focusing very specifically on the first half of a match as a jungler, and why I'm making these decisions. Because there's a bit of a forewarning I want to put here first. Jungling is extremely reactive in this meta. It has been for a long time, actually, but it's particularly reactive here. The beginning of jungling, how you start your jungling, is going to depend on your personal preference and to some extent on the preferences of your teammates in the initial minions spawning, but past that, it is very much adapting to the situations as they unfold. Also, keep an eye on the Merlin. Not only is he amazing, but he was also doing his Saturday Night Smiting, as he confessed to after the match, in the after-match chat. But I want to state here that there is nothing particularly unusual about the team comps, except we have a solo lane Ixchel. That is what Ixchel is doing. Okay, the enemy team composition is highly standard. Jungle Thanatos, ADC Charybdis, solo lane Surtur, Guardian Cabrakan, and finally, there is the mid lane Merlin. So with that being said, we're going to go on ahead and jump here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this paused here for a second, because there is several different starts to jungling, some of which I like, some of which I don't like, and I intend on explaining that here. This will be the longest pause for this video here, because this is important to talk about, and I am demonstrating my favorite start here. Jungler starts at speed, and the mid starts at damage. You bring them together to the experience, and you clear all three camps. Now, this start is primarily possible with any jungler who can hit a larger amount of enemies consistently. Thanatos has an AoE on his third auto attack, as well as you can see, I've picked up his third ability here, making that a lot easier for Thanatos. Some other junglers with less AoE damaging abilities will have a harder time with this kind of start and should really stick to two camps. Usually you're going to start at speed and mid brings the experience over, and then you combine for red. Alright, that is why I'm starting here. Some people start at this speed and move to red. I'm not as fond of that because, quite honestly, it's travel time and you're losing that distance there. I am not fond of that. I know some of the pro teams do it that way, on the claim that this allows them to switch to solo lane easier if they need to. Quite frankly, doing it this way gives you just as easy an access to solo lane or mid lane, so I don't really like that. There are a couple of other variations, but those are the three big ones. I might cover the others more later on, but for now, let's go on ahead and continue on. So, we're going to have this problem again. Okay, there we go. And what's my volume at? There we go. So you're going to see Baba Yaga bring the minions over here to the experience camp. Again, this is because I am Thanatos, and Thanatos has a better time dealing. You're going to see me use the auto attack here. There it is, the Death Scythe. And there we go. Grab my speed buff. She grabs her damage. We're both level 2. We move over. Now, she makes a mistake here. She takes a slightly longer way around. I'm not really sure why. So I'm going to wind up... I really shouldn't be this far up. This is actually why the enemy Thanatos blinked on me, is because Baba Yaga was a little later to lane than she probably should have been. It's not really that big of a deal. Obviously, I'm Thanatos, so I bought all health potions here, right? So, you know, I'm staying in lane. We're splitting the wave. This is fairly standard form. Now, something the enemy Thanatos does that's a little bit interesting is the enemy Thanatos stayed in lane, didn't go for anything else or anything like that. Sometimes they go for the back speed that they didn't start. Sometimes they don't. It really depends. So it's a little unusual. Personally, I like to go for the back speed buff just so I can try to not split with my mid as much. So that's a personal preference. Whether you go for the back speed or not is dependent on you. I stayed in mid lane because the enemy Thanatos stayed in mid lane. You can see I'm trying to poke out here. And miss. But right now we're just clearing. Try not to get too much poke. Ixchel calls enemies return to base. That's fine. Now this signals to me that I'm not necessarily going to have to go over to right lane after this. That I'm going to be likely more interested in left lane. I just walk into that. But that's fine. Right, so I'm heading to the right because I want these little harpies here. And I see an opportunity to grab these really quick. Boom. Boom. Lovely. And then I was going to originally grab those harpies, but I mistimed that a little bit. Baba Yaga calls me back to middle lane. And splits some experience. Now I note that the enemy Thanatos is missing. So I'm moving to left lane. Now I'm moving to left lane because Ixchel already said, you know, enemy missing. She was clearly ahead. At this point you can see she's level 4 and the Surtur is level 3. So she's ahead. I'm not as concerned about her, although the possibility does exist she's about to get ganked. But I want these oracles. And then I'm going to head over to left because I kind of suspect that this is where the gank is going to be. But I see just now, that's when I turn around, is the enemy Thanatos is on Ixchel. So what I'm going to do is go to the chests here because the enemy team in left lane is too far back towards their tower to make for a good gank. You can see over there the Ixchel fighting the Thanatos. Unfortunately, she dies. There's nothing really I can do. I wasn't going to get there in time either way. Could argue I might be able to get over there in time to cover the lane or possibly avenge Ixchel, but that wasn't terribly likely, and there's things I need to drop over here as well. So what I need to do, instead of wasting time flying over there, what I need to do is make sure I maintain pace and get golden experience by getting these camps. Alright, that is what I am very specifically doing right here. I could rotate over, but that would take a lot of time, and I wouldn't be farming while doing so, which would cost me in terms of gold and experience. So, as a very direct result, I am able to maintain pace because I didn't go over there, alright? So, what now I'm looking to do is just, you know, continue to farm. I'm keeping an eye on left and right lane at this particular point. The Ixchel is still ahead of the Surtur. Mostly due to the fact that she killed the Surtur before getting killed by the enemy Thanatos. Drop this for her. Now, you don't necessarily normally want to take this, but she is ahead, and I'm trying to stay or get ahead of the enemy Thanatos. So this isn't a bad decision on my part due to the fact that she is ahead. If she was behind, I would not have wanted to take that blue. So the Baba Yaga is getting slapped. I gank. I use my ult. We lock down the Merlin, smack the Merlin, get the Thanatos. This is a really big deal for us. This puts me ahead. This puts the enemy Thanatos behind. This puts Baba Yaga. Well, it helps her catch up because the Merlin is level 6. And you'll notice I'm 2 levels ahead and that the Merlin was ahead of the Baba Yaga even up until shortly after she got that kill. The primary reason, I think, is because he probably took a jungle camp or two. At this point, because we killed the enemy Thanatos, I have an opportunity to steal some stuff, so I steal this. Lovely for me. I'm still 2 levels ahead. Take a quick peek at their purple. Nothing doing there. Don't see the enemy support. There he is. Wonder if I have an opportunity here. This is a risk. Not necessarily of me dying, but there's a pretty decent possibility before that great Kuzenbo blink that I wasn't going to be able to get anything done out of this. I use my beads to continue the pursuit, but she wards me off because obviously she'd be able to pop me up back. And then he uses this, and we almost get him, but he busted out a great shell, and he survived. So I kind of wasted some time here, but the enemy Thanatos died, so I'm not too concerned. I actually have some time here. I clear this, I clear one of the Harpies and this experience camp for the benefit of... Actually, I don't think it's not an experience camp. The shield camp there for the benefit of Neith, and I get that golden experience. I get to maintain my pace ahead of the Thanatos. Alright, go ahead and drop more camps, this time for Kuzenbo. And off we go. Right, we're going to clear this. I don't see the enemy Thanatos, but I know Kuzenbo is rotated to mid. There's the enemy Thanatos dying to Ixchel again. Now, at this particular point in time, you'll notice I have not visited right lane. This is because Ixchel has consistently been ahead and she's snowballing. You can see she gets another kill here. And this is why I'm not going really over there. First off, she really doesn't need the help at this juncture. Second, me going over there would just siphon golden experience off of her, which is not what you want as a solo lane. She's doing exactly what I want as a solo lane, snowball. So I'm going to just leave that lane alone until I feel that she is starting to plateau and needs the help to maintain pace. But at this particular point in time, she's taken the tower, so she's pretty much free to go and do whatever she wants, so that's not really going to become necessary at any point. Now I see Kuzenbo dying, I see that the Baba Yaga is being ganked, I see an opportunity to possibly get some kills. I kill the Thanatos. I am unfortunately not really able to do anything else. It would have been nice if I could have killed the Merlin, or possibly the Kabrakan, but unfortunately I'm just not able to lock that in. But I know the Thanatos is dead. I know Ixchel is going to be fine and right. I'm just trying to get some poke in on Kabrakan. I was hoping to get the kill. If I'd landed that Death Scythe, I might have really committed to that, but unfortunately I missed. Ironically, I hit the Merlin. And at this particular point in time, just trying to get some farm here, trying to make sure that the tower doesn't get scared off by Merlin. I could have chased that, but he was too healthy. I know what his health was at. He was pretty well off at that point in terms of health. I really didn't want to chase that. Grab my Jotun's Vigor here. This winds up hurting me in the very late game, but that's something I'll talk about in episode 2 of this. So at this particular point, I see mid pressing up right now, which is fine. I'm going to grab this speed buff really quick as I assess the situation, because I'm not really sure they need my help. They are, after all, pretty close to the enemy tower, so me going up there wouldn't mean much. But, you know, they've pushed up Kabrakan here. I see the enemy Thanatos here, so I'm looking to gank here because the Thanatos is there, and I don't want them to be a 2v3. The Kuzenbo gets a great push on the Kabrakan. I go on ahead and do some damage there. And he gets nice and weak. I kill him with my execute, which is fantastic. Completely whiff my scythe throw. And the Ixchel comes in at just the right time to kill the Thanatos. Another huge win for us here. Absolutely fantastic. And now we're moving on to the Gold Fury. I was moving over to just take the Oracles first, and I maintain this just in case they have a ward there. I don't want to be attacking the Gold Fury while they have a ward, so as the jungler, I made sure to take the Oracles. Okay? That was not accidental. That was not me not paying attention. I deliberately took the Oracles first to make sure we wouldn't get seen. Okay? By enemy, potentially by enemy wards. Now, Neith takes the left tower at this point. She is a little ahead of the Charybdis. I wasn't originally going to gank this, but the appearance of Kabrakan indicates that I really do need to be over here. Unfortunately, she is dead right before I really can participate, but I am able to take out the Charybdis, which maintains sort of the pace of the lane, right? And then the Kabrakan, for some reason, insists on fighting me in wave. You can see me healing off of his wave that's there. All at this point I really need to do is just lock him down. Kuzenbo is coming in, so I'm not that concerned even if I get ganked. push by Kuzumbo, puts him in position. That's absolutely great. I get ganked by Thanatos. Now, I fight this because of 2 reasons. First, I'm 4 levels ahead. Second, of course, Kuzumbo is right there. He actually ults. It's a great ult. It was a great counter move by the Kuzumbo. That's why I fought that. I was, first off, again, 4 levels ahead. Second, I had Kuzumbo right there, and I knew he wasn't going to ignore me there. No support in their right mind would. So I knew I was going to be fine. Neith grabs these. I'm fine with this, with splitting this with her. I am, again, at this point, 5 levels ahead of the enemy Thanatos. I can spare the experience in gold at this point, and while she is also ahead of Tribdis, she's not as ahead as anyone else is, right? So off I go to right. Now, originally I was going right because I assumed that she was about to get ganked by Merlin, but Merlin's back in mid, and of course Thanatos is over there, but Thanatos is well ahead. You can see this is kind of funny because you can see where I'm having a harder time doing my VGS the way I want to. Later on in the match, I accidentally say you rock cancel that. I don't mean to, but I'm just not able to VGS at this point. So I was originally heading over left because, again, I was expecting the Neith to get counter-ganked. She wound up not being counter-ganked. At this particular point, I'm not really sure what the enemy team is doing. Most of them are missing. Obviously, the Tribdis is dead, but the rest of them are missing. I have no idea where they are. And I'm kind of getting nervous as a jungler because I don't have any information. I am completely lacking information. I attacked the Chaos Tower here in mid because I just don't know what else to do. Here's Thanatos, so I go a little bit on that. Thanatos ults, I ult. And then I do something idiotic. I turn around and I ult back under tower, despite nobody else being under tower. This kills me. This was a fatal mistake. Alright, I absolutely should not have ulted back under that tower, okay? That was very much a bad choice, okay? And I'm not really going to talk about my build too much here because that isn't what I want to focus on in this video. This is about jungling in general. This is not about Thanatos specifically or building for Thanatos. So I'm going to pass over my build. I'll probably talk about it at the end of the second episode of the building, but for now I want to ignore the build. So I see my allies pressuring mid lane. I see Surtur in the right lane, and I have to make a decision as a jungler. Where do I want to be? Right now, in theory, it's a 4v4 in mid, and they just wiped out 2 people in mid, but they lost Kuzumbo, so it's a 3v2 essentially over there in mid, theoretically speaking. So I'm going to head right to protect the tower because they really don't need me. You can see they've stopped their attack in mid lane, so I don't need to be there because they're not going to be there. Ixchel teleports over to stop Surtur. I have my ult coming up, so I want to ult this. He ults in turn. I could have ulted, but I didn't want to because, quite frankly, first off, he's too low on health for that. Second off, I don't need it. Then we have Kabrakan coming in here. Not sure why he decided to come in here, but here we are. I chased this because I obviously have Ixchel behind me. She's got her heal. The enemy Thanatos comes in while Ixchel is in the middle of her ult. I'm not really sure what the logic was there. Probably to save Kabrakan. I ult to chase Kabrakan down because I see that I have allies relatively close by. I underestimate their intention to come in. In fact, Ixchel does come in. She's a little late, but Kuzumbo, who I was expecting to come in, does not. We do wind up killing both of them, mostly because the Ixchel is absolutely amazing. This is about where I accidentally say you rock cancel that right after I die. I do not mean to. A great quadra kill by Ixchel. And then I get killed here. I meant to say oops, and then cancel that, but I accidentally say you rock cancel that. So I type out. It's shortly after this that I crack my second cold one, incidentally. I make a joke about Ixchel carrying us. If the Ixchel ever sees this, absolutely amazing gameplay by the Ixchel. Carlos, absolutely amazing Ixchel. The best Ixchel I've seen so far, considering how low amount of time she's been released for. But anyways, I shouldn't have been backing there. So my team is now attacking the mid lane, and we're switching. We're transitioning out of the. We're transitioning out of the really farming phase, the laning phase. We're getting to the team fight phase here. All right. I'll talk about the early part of the late game team fight phase, but I do intend on cutting this off at about the halfway point. And at this particular point, both of my deaths have been due to pretty stupid errors, a lazy back, and a terrible ult decision in mid lane. A nice clean kill on the Charybdis here at this particular point. And at this particular point, what I'm looking to do, I keep saying that at this particular point, what I'm looking to do is start the Gold Fury. Neath is right there, Kuzenbo is on his way. I'm not too concerned about this attempt. The enemy team, as you can see, is in right lane right there. And while I don't know where Merlin is, there's a really low risk that he's going to be able to steal it because Merlin doesn't have any kind of huge ult like Ra or Kukulkan. So I wasn't too concerned about the possibility of a steal by Merlin. Now I see Surtur is in right, I see Merlin and a couple of other people, I couldn't quite catch who was in middle, so we're working on the pyromancer, which is a great decision. The enemy team is playing defensively at this particular point in time. He wants to attack left lane, which is fair enough, that would be her prerogative. Somebody should have picked up that bomb, I don't think anybody does. Oh wait, yeah, Baba Yaga does, I didn't see that when I was actually playing. So I'm taking out Kabrakan really quick here. That's the enemy support out. The enemy Thanatos tries to kill the Baba Yaga. Merlin winds up taking her. The Charybdis makes a big move on me. Take her out. And then we have the Surtur and the Merlin left. And this is the point at which we begin to realize that Merlin is a pretty serious threat on the board. He actually winds up carrying them to victory. After the hour match, he does a great job. Spoiler warning, they do win this match. This is an honest mistake I was trying to pursue. If I'd been able to kill Surtur before I died, that would have been fine. Unfortunately, I just missed my death scythe. I crack another joke about the Ixchel's amazing performance. Absolutely huge play by... I mean, the Ixchel is really doing extremely fantastic. I realize in my mildly inebriated state that maybe... that wouldn't be taken the right way, and then everyone tries to explain why we lost that fight, and I was just trying to crack a joke. But yeah, the Ixchel absolutely plays really great. So at this particular point, what we're going to be looking at here is the Fire Giant. It's mildly amazing that they didn't go for the Fire Giant themselves, considering they had Surtur. He could have just backed, healed the fountain, and gone for the Fire Giant with Merlin. And considering Merlin is level 18 and easily the strongest person in this match right at this particular moment, that wouldn't have been impossible, especially since we killed the Thanatos fairly early on in that fight. And the Thanatos, not currently doing very well, would have had a pretty short cooldown timer, so possibly they could have gone for the Fire Giant. Some people would have gone for it, so I'm a little surprised. There is a gank going on over here in right lane with Kuzenbo. We do wind up counter-ganking this. I don't know why they ganked Kuzenbo in the first place. This is where I see Merlin. And I try to kill him. Unfortunately, I get intercepted by Thanatos and Kabrakan. But this is the point at which... Again, we are starting to realize that the Merlin is a pretty significant threat on the board, right? If you're wondering why the Neath isn't hitting that hard, it's because the Neath only has Executioner. She does not have any kind of serious penetration. They do pick up the rest of the kills here, which is great. So it was a good fight for us. But unfortunately, not enough of us are alive to really roll that into anything. You'll see here that Ixchel is fine, obviously, but these two had to go back, and we're not really going to be able to pick up anything. It's not like we are able to press mid-tower or anything like that. So while it was a win, it was a really meaningless win, which is not a concept talked enough about in regards to SMITE or MOBAs in general, is meaningless wins. We may have won that fight, but we didn't get anything out of it, besides some golden experience that we largely didn't need that grotesquely, right? So while my team is kind of flitting around, I'm just trying to farm up right here because I want to catch up to the Merlin because I want to be able to take him out a little bit more effectively, and to do that I need to be a higher level. And then we have these three in mid. I don't know what I was thinking rushing at them, to be honest. I didn't need to. I do get ulted by Kabrakan, but I just ult out. I'm looking at this point to take out someone to heal off of, and I just wind up taking out the Thanatos here, I get really aggressive with the Tribdis because, of course, my allies are coming in, and Neith picks that up for me, which was great because I wasn't sure I was going to win that. I accidentally steal the Cabrakan, and Kuzumbo correctly calls Fire Giant. Again, Merlin does not have the kind of ult. He doesn't have any kind of real ult, but he can't really steal these quite as easily. It is possible to steal with Merlin, yes. I'm not saying he can't steal. I'm saying it's harder because he doesn't have a massively damaging ult like, again, Ra or Kukulkan. So this is a great call, despite the fact that Merlin and Surtur are alive. Now, I barely survived this by slipping out of here and then healing with a absolutely fantastic Death Sight throw. I absolutely would have died if I hadn't hit that. And then we are able to take the Pyromancer as well, because obviously the Pyromancer is a much faster kill. And we are able to just absolutely capitalize. Now, I lazy back again, and this absolutely gets me killed right here. Alright, that's the second time I've lazy backed. I know better, it's just that, again, this is Saturday Night Smite. So, at this particular point in time, which I keep saying and I really need to stop, I apologize. I'm trying to decide what I want to build as my last item. I have 30% cooldowns, and I know that Boomba's Spear, which is what I want to go for as my final one, is going to give me another 10% cooldowns. So I'm trying to decide what I want to build here as my last item. That's what I'm really thinking about right here. I decide eventually I'm going to go for Brawler's Beatstick. Now, primarily here, Cabrakan is behind at this point, and Ixchel calls this out, and then you see our allies moving in, but the Baba Yaga is at this point cut off. You can see where she's been quite cut off from the rest of the team here, and she's going to get isolated out and killed by Merlin, of course. And I'm on my way, but I'm not necessarily sure I'm going to make it in time to do anything. In fact, after they kill Baba Yaga, they disengage hard, right? They kind of are looking for poke here at this point. I get way too aggressive here. The Merlin gets out. I could chase that. I absolutely should not, and I don't. I'm now at this point looking for something to heal off of in the jungle. Kuzumbo dives, so I'm just going to be like, well, let me just see what I can ult here. The enemy Thanatos ults, so I back out of that because I don't want to get catching some of that, but they wind up lining up for me kind of there. I grab the Tribdis. Unfortunately, I'm unable to escape the Merlin, who catches me on my way out, but I'm about to be replaced by Baba Yaga if she can get there in time. But it was a 1-for-1 trade, so now it's a 3v4, which isn't great, but it's better than nothing, right? At this particular point in time, the team really needs to disengage, which is what the Kuzumbo was trying to do. It's what the Neith was trying to get buying time for. Neith gets jumped by the enemy Thanatos, but she takes care of that particular problem. So now it's a 4v3, and the enemy team, having been disengaged from, is going to in turn not really press this. In fact, you can see where they're backing up a little bit. The Neith is correctly calling attack here. It is a 3v4. Unfortunately, Kuzumbo went back, but the attack call there on paper is correct. And again, if Kuzumbo hadn't backed, it would have been 100% correct. I'm not blaming Kuzumbo for backing. He needed the healing. That is not a criticism of the Kuzumbo, nor is it a criticism of the Neith's call. The Neith's call is actually correct here. Now, at this particular point, I keep saying that. The Thanatos has just respawned, so we need to kill somebody quick in order to maintain our numbers, and I just decide I'm going to go for this Tribdis here. This frees up Baba Yaga. We go in here. I kill the Cabrakan, and then I'm going to wind up killing the Merlin, which is big news. And then, of course, we have the Thanatos coming in. Now, the Thanatos actually kills Baba Yaga and then comes right towards me, which is fantastic. I see the Kuzumbo tanking, so I just go for this. I get a nice quadra, but unfortunately, I am unable to lock down the Penta. You can see where I was really close there. They do pick up the Surtur, which is nice. They do wind up getting the tower here because the Neith stops the minion wave beforehand and lets the minions take the tower, which is the correct move. I grab my Brawler's Beatstick, and I'm looking to get, of course, my Spear, and they're going to try to press onto the Phoenix, but that isn't going to last long enough. This is where the Neith's lack of percentage penetration really starts to hurt the team. She does have Executioner, and she does do okay damage against the Phoenix, but this is the first indication. This becomes a bigger problem later on. She's going to get picked off here, obviously, after that ult. And this is where I realize the Neath's title and name are awesomely funny, but at this particular... Currently, what Ixchel is doing is she's running to the fire giant to make sure they don't get it. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut this off at this particular point, because at this specific point in the match, we have moved on to very definitively the late game. We're pressing the enemy's phoenixes, and I have at least been able to discuss why I made my decisions in the jungle. I want to kind of end the video off really quickly by saying that there is no real... I know a lot of people say there is a jungle pathing, and broadly speaking there is. However, to limit yourself or otherwise lock yourself into that pathing is just about the worst thing you can do as a jungle. Use jungle pathing of people as a rough guideline. You will eventually come to develop your own jungle pathing, which is great. But again, don't be afraid of breaking up your jungle pathing. You will notice that I didn't follow a specific pattern, but I followed what could essentially be described as a loose sort of figure 8, where I started with these, and then we came to mid. I came over here really quick to grab some harpies. I jumped the gun a little bit on that, but, you know, after coming back to mid to help Baba Yaga, I switched to the right. You really should be, in terms of jungle pathing, and this is what I want to leave you on just as a reminder. Your jungle pathing should approximately look like a figure 8 turned on its side, or in other words, the infinity symbol. You start on the right, you go to mid, you flow to the left, on the upper half of the left, and then you loop around here, you grab these, you come back to mid, you kind of arch over this way, you grab these, you loop back upwards to mid, and you figure 8 on your half of the jungle. Again, this figure 8, this sideways figure 8, this infinity symbol, is a rough outline of how your pathing should work. If you realize or guess, correctly or not, that the enemy jungler is going to go gank one lane or the other, you will need to break your pathing there to either gank the same lane after the fact in a counter gank, or apply pressure in another lane by counter ganking another lane entirely. Okay? But your pathing should look like an infinity symbol in the jungle. Okay? I didn't fully clarify that. I was talking a lot about my decisions because, quite frankly, again, while your pathing should look like the infinity symbol, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to your snap decisions in the middle of a match and what you think your team needs at that time. You will also notice that on my way to some places, I was able to stop and really quickly snag camps. This is very specifically because I have Boomba's dagger, which heals me both my health and my mana upon clearing a camp. If you have Eye of the Jungle, you probably shouldn't do this. You should just rush directly there, because just being in the jungle is going to increase your HP and MP5 rather than healing you upon the death of jungle camps. That is why specifically whenever I was on my way somewhere, I stopped for camps occasionally. Part of this also has to do with the fact that I was Thanatos and I was ahead. If I was behind, even with Boomba's dagger, I would not have done so. Okay? So this is where I'm going to end this part of the match. And I will finish this match in the second half in a separate episode. But in the meantime, thank you all very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions, or requests, please leave them down in the comment section below. And thank you all very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.